Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, DCJ.
How are you?
I'm fine under the circumstances.
Yes.
And how are you? And good afternoon to all the commissioners.
Yeah. You joined the Department of Justice as a young man of 22.
Yes.
And you were employed as the court interpreter.
Yes. There was no money to go to varsity, so that was the only way to get employment then.
Yes, and you never left. You've been with the department until now, until today.
Yes, I never left. I think maybe I felt that I'm born to be here, so that's why I remained.
And while you were working with the Department of Justice, you managed to acquire a number of academic qualifications, all your legal qualifications, your Deep Juris, B Juris, LLB.
Yes, DCJ. I started with matric, then I managed to get all my tertiary qualifications.
And you are currently reading for a master's degree in corporate law?
Yes. In fact, it was supposed to have been finalized long time ago, so there were some hiccups along the way, and I couldn't finalize it, but I'm still going on.
Well, all the best with that. I don't know how people manage to juggle demanding jobs with lectures and all that. I could never do it.
Thank you so much, DCJ.
Yeah, you can give yourself a pat on the back. You have been a magistrate since 1984.
Yeah, actually 85.
Oh yes,
85.
1912.
Yes.
There's a discrepancy in your application form.
Oh.
Elsewhere, you say you were appointed in 1984, but at paragraph 6, where you list the chronology, it's 1985 to 1996. I just wanted you to explain something to me that left me a bit confused.
Okay.
You have listed that you were a regional court prosecutor between 1985 and 1988.
Yes.
And then directly thereafter, you say you became an additional magistrate in 1985. Is it possible to be both at the same time?
Yes, then it was possible.
Oh, I see.
When you get appointed, you got appointed as an additional magistrate, but then they could still deploy you as a prosecutor as well. For instance, I was already a magistrate when I worked as a regional court prosecutor for a short while, and then they deployed me again back to the regional court, and that was born out of with the dawn of the democracy. There were some problems in Limpopo in particular, where old people were attacked and banned. They were accused of being wizards. So there were a lot of public violence matters, and which needed to be attended to by the regional court. So I was requested to go and prosecute in the regional court during that period.
I see. You have had a number of acting stints in the Gauteng division of the High Court.
Yes,
starting in 2016.
Yeah, starting 2016. Yes.
And when was your last acting stint? This year?
I'm busy now.
Oh, you're still there?
I'm still there.
All right.
Actually, I've been there since the second term.
How has your work output been during these acting stints? Were you able to produce written judgments?
Yes, I think maybe some fear was inspired on me about people delaying to deliver their judgments. So I've always been striving to make sure that whenever I reserve judgment, it's with a date, that on this particular date I'm going to deliver, which normally it was not more than a week. Yes.
All right. How many judgments estimate you'll do?
If I remember very well, I think I've got about 41 written judgments. Yes.
Not a bad track record. Any reserved judgments, or old ones at least?
As I said, DCJ, that if I reserve judgment, it will be with a date. and it will not be more than a week. So I don't have any reserve judgments.
You have indicated that you have one parthead matter.
Yes, I've been seized with this parthead matter since 2018. It had about 13 accused persons, 7 counsel, and they are facing 391 counts. Amongst others, it's fraud. So when you have a big number, there's always something that creeps in to disturb the smooth flow of the case, and also the volume of the case itself. But now we are at the tail end.
You have been, well, you've been involved in a number of initiatives of the department. You've assisted the Magistrates Commission with a number of projects. Would you tell us a little bit about that, just briefly, highlights?
Firstly, I realized, especially when I became the head of the office in Benoni, that every other day there would be people protesting outside the court, saying that there's an accused person, he must be given bail, or he must not be given bail, you know, protesting over various things. Then I started an initiative where I came to the local law society, the police, all the stakeholders, to say that people need to be taught about what is really happening instead of coming to protest all the time and demand their own things. And I started what we used to call a justice forum. And we will hold workshops in the communities where people that were involved were attorneys, some of them were politicians, so they will help us to try and invite the members of the community to come and attend. So we'll teach them that when a person is charged with a crime, this is what follows. And then we started to understand each other, and they started to understand what was happening. And then I was appointed at the Magistrates Commission, or designated, let me put it that way, at the Magistrates Commission since 2016. And I served on 2 other subcommittees, the Appointments Committee and the Ethics Committee. And when my term expired last year in August, then I think the powers that may be, my colleagues, they felt that they still need my services. So I was redesignated from November last year. So the designation is for about 5 years. So yes, I'm still serving, and I'm trying to contribute as much as I can.
I see you've never been overturned on appeal.
Not that I know of, except that I learned that there's a certain civil matter. It was a road accident fund matter where I dismissed it, and then they appealed to the SCA, and the SCA dismissed set aside my findings, but found that the driver and the plaintiff were 50% negligent, both of them. Yes, that is the only one that I can remember now.
Oh, all right. Well, that was not a complete overruling.
I missed that, DCJ.
No, I'm saying you were not completely overruled after all.
Yes, thank you.
All right, well, enjoy it while it lasts. Your day will come.
I'm looking forward to such days, and it's a process of learning when sometimes they overturn your judgment because you might have made a mistake somewhere.
We all do at one time or the other.
Yes, DCJ.
How is your state of health?
My health?
Your state of health, yes. I ask because of what is declared here.
Yes, it's excellent.
All right. If it's excellent, then you need not explain any further.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say that 1999, I had a bit of a sick leave, and then thereafter, it was now during COVID, where I tested positive, but I was fine, and I was away for that prescribed 14 days period.
All right.
Yes.
Lastly, from me at this stage, you were once convicted of a criminal offense,
Yes, DCJ.
and a certain sentence was imposed, but you appealed and
Yes.
were successful on appeal. Both conviction and sentence were set aside.
Yes, DCJ.
All right. So you are clean as you sit there.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Makamu. Colleagues, do you have questions for the candidate? JP, old age has just caught up with me. in a big
Thank you
way.
very much, DCJ. Abshen Dada.
Option JP.
I just want you to focus on your acting stints because the spreadsheet reflects a total of 148 weeks that you've acted.
Yes.
And in criminal trials.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, am I correct that from 2018, you were allocated, and I don't want to go into the facts of the matter because you haven't finished it, isn't
Yes.
it? Yeah. But it's what we call white-collar crime.
Yes.
Right. That's the matter involving 13
Accused.
accused.
Yes.
And how many defense teams are in that matter?
7.
7. But since 2018, you've been dealing with this matter.
Yes.
And that's what has added to your criminal trial weeks. Am I correct?
Yes.
Because you've been given the dispensation to say this trial must finish. So
Yes.
you are given timely appointments to come and finish it.
Yes, JP.
What you haven't set out in your spreadsheet, and I don't know why, is there have been occasions where your trial would collapse, say, on a Monday or a Tuesday.
Yes, JP.
And you'll offer your services to the DJP and you'd get civil work, like RAF, in the civil trials or unopposed. Am I correct?
True, JP. I always say I've got only 10 fingers. I can only count up to 10 and I've got nothing else to do. So I always offer my services to do more work where it's available. I always approach my superiors, DJP in particular,
Yes.
who allocate. That's why I've got quite a number of civil matters that I've done.
Yes.
Yet I was on a criminal roll.
I see.
And to add on that, there are some occasions where I was allocated to the civil role, but a need arises just on the last minutes that my services are required in the criminal role, and then I will gladly go and do my job.
And
But
in
once,
fact, this criminal trial was allocated to a permanent judge, but
yes,
because of your criminal law experience and expertise, you were then allocated to run with this trial. Am I correct?
I will say yes, JP.
Right. But your criminal law experience and expertise is your biggest strength.
Yes, definitely.
But you have done civil work in the High Court and in the Regional Court.
Yes, in the regional court you do everything.
I see.
I'm still busy with criminal and civil cases in the regional court, and I've done that in the High Court as well.
Yeah. I think one last question, DCJ, is I think in your list of judgments that you've given, you've set out 57. But of those 57, I think we need to get 15 out because those were draft orders. There were no judgments written.
Oh, yes, yes.
Am I
yes.
correct?
You are correct, JP.
Thank you. Thank you, DCJ. Got no further questions.
Thank you, JP. Commissioner Moimang?
Thank you, Deputy Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Acting Judge Makamu.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Just one question from my side. Given the acting stint that you have had from 2016 up to 2022 as an acting judge. What I want to find out from you is in terms of the feedback that you might have received from JPs where you have acted. Has there been any systems and mechanisms put in place to give feedback on the areas around how you reason your judgment to ensure that there is coherence and a point of convergence between legal assumptions that you put forward and the conclusion thereof? Secondly, the areas of structures, in areas around how you structure your judgment, with a view to ensure that there is coherence between facts and reasons, which ensure that there is clarity of thought in terms of judgment of the judgment that you deliver. But more than that, whether as part and parcel of the feedback, is there systems in place to ensure that issues around linguistics and communication skills are embedded in that feedback to ensure that in your following stint or where you are going back, there is improvement around those areas? Thank you, Acting Judge Makamu. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Firstly, I took it upon myself that whenever I have written judgment, especially after having delivered it, there are some confidence that I have amongst the senior judges, and I request them to sit down with me and look at what I have written. And because I will take this, whether it's a weakness. I'm never satisfied with what I've done. I see it as it's having some shortcomings. But apart from that, to critique my judgments, fortunately, I think it's happening more in Gauteng. I don't know other areas. There's constant training. When one looks at the judgments that I have written in 2016 and the judgments that I have written in 2022, you can start to see the difference. And training is an ongoing process, and I am ready to learn. And whenever I'm afforded an opportunity to attend those kind of trainings, because those trainings are meant to assist us to improve on our delivery of work that we're doing, I make sure that I attend. And I'm not one who is shy of asking how I should do things. Then I always seek assistance.
Thank you, Acting Judge Makamu. Thank you, Deputy Chief Justice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Nyambi?
Thank you, DCJ. Afternoon, Acting Judge Makamu.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
You were a judicial officer during the bad old days of the old South Africa.
Yes, Commissioner.
Any bad experience that stand out that we were able to overcome then, that we are able to share with us today?
Something that might have happened during those days, one thing that is outstanding in my mind, I was already a magistrate, and as I said, I was requested to go back to prosecute in the regional court. And we had many regional courts then. They imported, if I may use that word, regional magistrate from Gauteng. So we ran many regional courts at that time. I remember one day, it's still a pain to me. We disposed of 4 rape cases in less than an hour. When I called the complainant, and the complainant testifies, and I will be asked, do you have any better witness than this one? And in short, that was saying to me, don't waste my time. There's no case here. And yet, that was not my belief. I thought that was racially motivated. And yes, as a magistrate, as I was prosecuting in the regional court, I remember we used to do circuit courts in the old Gazangulo. So I remember the other time we were going to work in Tulamahash, Mala, and our regional magistrate seemed to have had friends or shares in a particular hotel where there is a well-known Cheetah Inn. It was called Cheetah Inn as well. And although I was occupying the position of a magistrate and a prosecutor for the regional court, I remember when I went there, he wanted to have lunch there. And when he said, you must serve these people lunch as well, they said, it's fine. But they wanted to use the enamel plates that are used by the staff at the back. Then he said, at least give them decent plates. We were given decent plates. We were not allowed to go and eat in the dining room, but we sat in the scullery to eat. And these are some of the experiences that I experienced during those days. And also that sometimes when you are challenged by your white colleague and you try to stand your ground and say whatever you are saying, and also saying that at least I studied up to this. And this is the Afrikaans phrase, I'm not good in Afrikaans, but where I was told that my gratis may fail, and you can't tell me about your qualifications. And those were painful moments. But I decided to focus on the future and build myself up and forget to rely on those kind of attitudes from those people. Those are some of the experiences that I had. Thank you, Commissioner.
So you were complying?
We? Compliant? Yes. I had to comply because the system was such that I must comply. And in any case, there was this well-known phrase that comply and complain later.
If you can share with us your understanding of the doctrine of separation of powers.
The doctrine of separation of powers, I think it's applicable in the democratic state, where you have three arms of the state. And then where you have the legislature that enacts the laws, you have the executive who implement the law, and you have the judiciary who are interpreting the law. Then these three arms of the state, they are not supposed to be encroaching on each other, but there's checks and balances that we shouldn't encroach on each other. And we try to see that the parliament must do its job as a sovereign institution, because they are higher than any other department or any other institution of the government to make their laws. And the executive will implement the laws. And the courts will be there, the judiciary, to interpret that particular law when they are brought before court. So, yes, those are the doctrine of separation of powers is that all these three arms must be independent on their own.
Can I have the last one?
You look like you're still hungry for more.
No, thank you. Thank you, Acting Judge Makamu. Thank you, TCJ.
You can ask it your last question.
No, I'm fine. I respect the two questions, TCJ.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Malema.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much, TCJ. I have two questions, and I'm not sure if there are two, but so when people were defying the system and joining the struggle, you decided to comply and become a magistrate.
I had to make a decision at that time. Although I subscribed to the ethos of struggle, but at the same time, one wouldn't forget where you come from. I was raised in a country, or rather a place, an area, which was so much impoverished. My family was so much impoverished as well, to an extent that poor people will call us poor. So I also wanted to improve the livelihood of my family as well, but not at the expense of the struggle. So I said, if I have to contribute, I will contribute from within, and not that I did not want to participate. I will give you one example. At the dawn of democracy, there was a mass meeting in a hall, and there was a decision that was taken that they want to go and attack the police station. And I stood up and said to them, if we want to do things right, let us not expose ourselves to the dangers of being killed unnecessarily. We can follow some other channels that will help us to perhaps protest, legally so, by applying, and then that will at least stop perhaps the bullets flying for that particular moment. But to go for destruction of the infrastructure that we'll need tomorrow, I don't think it's wise. And that in itself, after that particular meeting, they decided they are not going ahead with that. And then I was now a fugitive from that time. I was sought. And I ran and stayed in various places, and including one time we even went to Botswana, where I was a magistrate, but I was on the run. And it was because I was subscribing to the freedom of the nation.
So 1985 and 1986, it was the most volatile period where the youth were responding to O.R. Tambo to render South Africa ungovernable, and the formation of PSYCO. And during that period, did you trial any of the activists at that time? Or did you handle any of those political cases at that time?
You will recall that in the homelands during those days, I think the forces were very much in power, to such an extent that you will be destroyed immediately. So what we did is to try and advise those who wants who were free to go out and implement whatever was decided. I don't know whether I may be blamed for name dropping. For instance, Collins Chabane was my classmate and a very good friend of mine. And the day that he skipped the country, we were together. And the previous day, on a Saturday, or rather on Friday, he told me that let's go and attend the UDF meeting in Cape Town. I told him that I don't even have money because I was coming from a very poor family. He said, leave that to me. We did attend the meeting in Cape Town and came back again the same day. And then on Sunday, we were back, and people did not realize that we were not there. And then we sat down and decided that let's skip the country. Then later he said, look, maybe you shouldn't go with me now so that I may have a way to come in when I come back. And then we remained in contact until when he was arrested, and he went to Rubin Island, and then he was released later, and then we started communicating again.
You're presiding on that case of Castle Matal versus Gazangul government, which he won during those times?
Unfortunately not.
Oh, okay. Thank
I
you.
did not preside over that matter, and I did not.
It was in the homelands, yeah. You
Yes.
won against the homeland.
And when cases of that nature come into the homelands, we had the presiding officers, the prosecutors who were whites, and they're the ones who were seized with that matter. They wouldn't give it to you as a black person.
Thank you, TCJ.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Steinberg?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
In their review, you would have seen that the GCB is concerned that your judgments are not well or sufficiently reasoned and have on occasion relied on incorrect legal assumptions. I share that concern, and I want to just ask you specifically about a couple of your judgments in this regard. The first one is Mulai versus Pule Incorporated, which is on page 37 of your application.
Yes, I know that, that judgment
Yes.
very well. I remember it.
Now, in that case, there was a verbal, an oral agreement between an advocate and an attorney regarding a brief from the RAF. And the attorney said that the briefs, the agreement was that the advocate would only be paid once the RAF had paid. And the advocate said the agreement was he would be paid regardless of whether the RAF paid the attorney. Now, it seems that the legal test that you used was, you said the question, is it practical to pay the advocates only after the RAF has paid the defendant, on which there was no certainty as to when the fund will pay? And later you say the averment by the defendant is not practical and feasible for the practice of the advocate to survive with time frame of when he will be paid for his services where he completed his work. I want to ask you, where did you source that legal test?
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that was the first civil case that I had on my very first stint in the High Court. And when you act for the very first time and you are seized with these matters, obviously your experience from the lower court cannot be exactly on par with the experience that you expect from the High Court. That particular judgment, I feel that if I can be given an opportunity to rewrite it, I may come to the same conclusion, but I may write it in a better way because of the training that I received since 2016 until now. And I will be able to apply the law and the principles more efficiently than it was done. I agree with you. The judgment itself, it's lacking in some areas. And I think it was due to maybe, let me say, inexperience by being in the High Court.
So what legal test would you apply now if you wrote it today?
Firstly, I may not be very crisp about it, but the fact of the matter is if there was a contract, and this contract, the parties, they agree, or like in this case, they don't agree, is whether whatever they have agreed, is it something that can be applied successfully? For instance, my concern in this matter, I may not come up with exactly what you are looking for, but was that the prescription period was still running, irrespective of the fact that there was that agreement. And there was a danger, because when he then sued Pule Incorporated, it was because he was about to run out of, the prescription was about to run in, and he won't be able to recover his costs after that, because it would have prescribed.
Where did the onus lie?
The onus lies with With the plaintiff, obviously, to aver that this is exactly what was agreed.
And how did he discharge it?
How?
How did he discharge his onus? Given that it was an oral contract, he had to prove that his version of the contract was right. How did he do so?
Unfortunately, I did not revise my notes to see exactly how that was done, but I was persuaded to believe his version, that indeed his version was the one that was more probable, and I admitted it.
Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Lokies?
Thank you, TCJ. Justice, I just want two quick issues. I noted that you acted on appeals mostly. Tell me, under what circumstances must the Court of Appeal interfere with the factual findings and inferences drawn by the trial court?
If the appeal court find that the court accord misdirected itself by applying, or rather, how will I put it? You find that the discretion that the court accord applied was misdirected and it was not properly applied. And the same thing with the facts. But otherwise, the appeal court will not easily interfere with the discretion of the court accord. The main thing is whether the court misdirected itself.
Last question. Are you familiar with the terms used mainly during legislative interpretation, terms such as reading in and reading down? And if you do, what is the meaning of the reading in and reading down of a legislation?
Reading in the legislation is to be able to see the spirit and that prevails when that particular act or that legislation was being considered. You should be able to read in it and be able to interpret it correctly. And then reading down is just actually, I'll put it as a practical kind of a question, to say that you apply your mind to exactly what is it's clear from that particular legislation.
I won't take it further. I leave it. I must leave it here. You
I will wait for you outside to give me the answer. Thank you.
DCJ.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Karuru?
Thank you very much, DCJ. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon, sir. Commissioner.
I realize that there is a case that you presided over, and of course you provided to us on page 44 of your bundle. Musiwach, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and others, Mr. State. It was a recusal application.
Yeah, it's Dube and others, let's say, and two others.
Yes, that one.
Yes.
I just want to understand, because on the judgment, I see that you deal with the facts a lot. You go to the distance with the facts. Then you go into the law relating to recusal. Then you start quoting some of the paragraphs from the judgment. I just want to understand, in the context of this case, because an application for recusal, I mean, it's tried that it is an objective test, right?
Yes.
But there is a view that says there are presiding officers who lack self-reflection. In other words, they see it as an attack on themselves when they are confronted with the question of bias and the question of impartiality. What is your view in relation to litigants who bring recusal application? Isn't it not time to infuse some level of subjectiveness in the test? Because if in the mind of somebody who perceive you as being biased or as being impartial, wouldn't that carry some weight when you are confronted with that, or that will lead to, generally to lead to abuse? What is your view on that?
Commissioner, I'm a little bit conflicted in responding to your question because I'm still seized with that matter. As I sit here, there's an application. The state has closed this case.
No, it's fine.
There's another application.
We can leave it. No, it's fine. It's
Okay,
fine.
thank you.
Thank you very much,
Commissioner.
DCJ.
Any questions from the virtual platform?
Yes, Deputy Chief Justice.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. It's a simple, practical question to Mr. Makamu, and I think it's good that we've got a person who started his career as a court interpreter for 3 or 4 years. From your experience over the years as a presiding officer and as a court interpreter, Mr. Makamu, can you tell us, do you believe that the interpretation services that are offered to people in court assists the presiding officers adequately in all times in coming up with fair judgments? And do you think there's anything that can be done to improve the lot of interpreters that we have in our country? And I mean across the board, interpretation of all languages. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Firstly, when I started as an interpreter, I did not have the view from the other side, particularly of the presiding officer. You'll find that we were interpreting before the magistrate who understand the language, the prosecutor who understand the language. But then I reached a stage where I sat as a presiding officer in a case where the language that is being spoken is completely foreign to me. And you can't make even a little idea as to what they are saying. And I will give one example. I was doing a matter. I'm not going to disclose the nationality of this particular individual. And there was this particular interpreter. And I will give an example of a question. On the 27th of April, were you present in Johannesburg? And the interpreter started to interpret to that particular individual. They went on and on and on and on for a very long time. Eventually, I said, this is a very short question, but why is it taking so long? And that gave me some doubts as to whether the quality of interpreting that we are having, is it the one that will help the court, or this person is helping somebody else? So yes, there are two sides of the story. There are interpreters who are very eloquent, who are extremely assist the judicial officers to understand exactly what the witness or whoever is talking is saying. But there are others that may leave a room for confusion in the mind of the presiding officer. So yes, we need to have more of very eloquent interpreters, and who are also trustworthy, who are loyal, who will interpret exactly what is happening. And if we have such kind of interpreters, then definitely that will assist the presiding officer.
Well, thank you very much, and I think that becomes our collective responsibility as commissioners in our different capacities to look into. Thank you very much, Mr. Makamu.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Justice.
Thanks, Commissioner Singh. Does not appear that there are any more questions for you, Mr. Makamu. You are excused. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DCJ, and thank you very much. Commissioner Mali. Thank you.